welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me today is my favorite co-host, my wife, Tamara. Say hello.
Hello.
That was great.
You said say hello.
Yeah, but I know. You've been on enough now that I should know that that's exactly what you're going to do every time, but I keep hoping that you'll say something guesty. Like thank you for having me on. No, thank you for having me on, or I'm excited to talk about our topic today, or anything like that. But I guess you're just burned out from all of your schoolwork that you're doing right now, and your 99.96 grade point average, or whatever it is right now. My mistake, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Probably that 0.23% is my fault, too. Anyway.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just letting it go.
Okay. So, brief conversation today, I think.
Yes, because I actually burnt out today. Not so much that I'm sure it's from school or kids or building house or the zillion other things going on.
Combination of all this stuff. Anyway, so you brought up an interesting phrase a few days ago from your studies, and I thought maybe we'd talk about it because I think it's relevant for a lot of people and a lot of subjects. Automating your environment. Can you kind of explain a little bit what that means? Automate your environment.
Well, I think like you said that term. I didn't say the term automate your environment.
Oh. Well, the concept is what you were talking about, and I thought, I guess, yeah, it's true. I thought of the term automate your environment.
Yeah. So I was sharing with you. So for my master's, we were talking about how important it is when you're laying out a classroom for kids on the spectrum to have very clear, well-defined zones and boundaries for them to be successful. And because we live in a neurodivergent household, I have thought about how important that would also be in your home, but then to transfer over to like the shop space or any of those things is to put things so that it becomes automatic. And not that, like, for me, I don't know that I feel like a lot of things ever become automatic. I still have to choose. I still have to, like, I'm not like some people I talk to. Oh yeah, I don't think about it. I just do it. I'm like, I still have the wrestle with myself every night. Should I brush my teeth? Could I get away with not brushing my teeth? No, I should brush my teeth. What about floss? Yes, I should floss. But I don't want to floss. It's going to take too long. I have that argument every night and every morning. So
I don't. I just don't floss.
Yeah, there you go. So when we're talking about these zones of like automating your system, right? If you can at least get to the point where like this is where this activity occurs, this is where my things for this activity are, and they're in this space, and that's what I do here, that's going to take some of that mental load away and allow you to be able to be more successful in that.
Yeah, from a shop perspective, it's having the tools that you need for that tool on.
Yeah.
At the tool, like if you need a Allen key for adjusting a saw guide, it's attached to the tool. And on my bandsaw in my shop, when I had a shop, I mean, it's still attached to the bandsaw. There's a couple magnets, and the Allen key for adjusting the saw guides on my bandsaw is just right there. And so I can pull it off the magnet, adjust my thing, put it back. If it wasn't there, I'd have to walk across the shop, and then that additional step to something is a barrier to me actually doing things correctly. And I think that carries over into lots of things that we do in our lives too, right? Most of us probably recognize in ourselves the need to exercise more, for example, or to do our nightly planning or a journal or our meal planning, or, achieve the goal that we want to do. But because there's additional steps involved in doing the thing, we put it off because it's easier to pick up the phone and doom scroll rather than write in your journal, or it's easier to eat out for lunch rather than make yourself a sandwich so you can save that extra little bit of money to go on a trip or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of like with those things too, like I can't remember the quote, but it was talking about how important setting those boundaries and making physical boundaries in areas, because as long as you don't know what's supposed to be going on here, then everything goes on here. And it made me think about, I don't know for other people, but like how much junk gets put in the kitchen that does not belong there.
Yeah,
right?
The kitchen junk drawer.
And like it just becomes like a catch-all, or the kitchen table. Everything gets piled there. And when you define that, like, this is the kitchen space, only kitchen things come in here. And you have to be strict with yourself on that for a long time so that those things happen in those areas. And I think for a lot of us who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, there was so many things everywhere. Like things were like, you just don't know what to do with all the things, right? Like and you just, there wasn't zones necessarily. It was just everything everywhere, and every surface was covered. And so you're seeing lots of us going to like the more minimal side of things, because there has to be a way to deal with the clutter and the overwhelm. And it does quiet your mind and allow you the time to think and create and be more productive when those things are done where they're supposed to be done.
Yeah, when everything has a place and everything in its place.
Yeah.
Sort of a situation. One of our mutual friends, I don't know if you knew this or not, but one of our mutual friends at church, his brother is a mechanic, or was a mechanic for the, I think it was Players, might have been an F1 team or anyway, race car team, might be in kart racing or something like that. But
like horse and cart?
No, it's a class of
okie dokie. This is like that football thing earlier today that I didn't understand either, but continue.
Yeah. Anyway, but he's a mechanic in the shop, and our mutual friend, I'll tell you his name afterwards because you have no idea who it is, I'm thinking at this point, but I don't want to say his name out loud.
Okay, continue. Ramble.
I'm eating time. Making this more robust of an episode.
I'm going to fall asleep.
Anyway, so he was talking about how he went to the shop, and so it's a car shop and mechanic shop basically, right? But it's obviously a very high end shop because they're racing on very high end, or working on very high end race cars. And he said that everything was just absolutely immaculate, to the point of you could probably eat off the floor.
Yep.
Like just immaculately clean. But that's something that I've noticed in people who are, there's kind of the two extremes of creativity, right? There's the
I'm not messy, I'm creative.
Yeah, I'm not messy, I'm creative, and everything's in absolute chaos. And then you get the other people who are maybe more OCD about it or something, who have everything in its place. And I'm curious what you feel about that. Like, is that organization conducive to creativity, but then the mess afterwards prevents you from going out and being creative?
I think for me, the organization is definitely conducive to creativity and productivity, massively. Then the mess gets created, and I don't know how to deal with the mess. Or I shouldn't say that. For me, the cleanup becomes frustrating if there's one thing that I don't know where it goes. And that's all it takes, is one little thing that I'm like, I don't know exactly what to do with it, or it's not like an immediate thing, or it needs to go somewhere else because it was brought to the wrong space. Then I'm frustrated and done. And things stay a mess because of that one thing. You're looking at me like I have 3 heads.
No, I know exactly how you operate. We've been married for several years now.
But that's, and it just overwhelms me, and I'm frustrated and I'm anxious. But like sleep, productivity, all those things for me very much function much better if everything is organized and put away and I know where things are.
So to some extent, then automating your environment is creating systems to ensure that you put things away or organize things the way that they should be for you.
Yeah, like for example, this past week, we were visiting my dad, and we were staying with my dad, who is being a bachelor for the first time because he and my mom are in separate houses due to one not selling and them buying one earlier. Anyway, it is what it is. So my dad's on his own for the first time ever in his life as a retiree, and it is very interesting the way things are put away in his house.
It is incredibly frustrating.
There is no logic.
No, like you open up the drawer beside the stove expecting to find like hot pads or oven mitts
Car keys.
or flippers or something, something that would be logically associated with a stove.
No, nothing.
And it's like plastic bags or
No, the
kitchen drunk drawer with
has
the car
car
keys in
keys
it, and
owner's manuals and
yeah,
random stuff. Anyway,
it's very
it's
frustrating to
just
cook
very
in.
different, yeah. And he has some mobility issues, so like weird things are in weird places because of that, and it's just like also very frustrating though. Like to try and cook in that space or to do things in that space was very frustrating because I couldn't get a handle on why things were where they were.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, from my perspective, from what I'm working on, there's massive research behind showing when you automate, I'm going to say automate your classroom or automate your routines and stuff for kids, that also means a schedule and having time. And I think that's also an important part to creativity that we often think, oh, I'm being creative, I just need to do it whenever the spirit moves me to be creative. And setting aside that time is also super important, and scheduling out your day so that you know I'm going to do this. And if you need visual reminders, if you need alarms on your phone, if you need a physical calendar, whatever it is, being willing to add those tools in to make that automated process more effective for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like bandwidth in your brain. You only have so much processing power available to remember things and to keep things in your brain. And so the more things that you have that give you visual cues and or auditory cues or whatever it is, tactile cues, whatever thing you use to remind yourself, the more of those that you have that you don't have to think about to function, the more productive you can be because you have less things burdening and taking up that bandwidth in the back of your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, so automating your environment is basically trying to figure out those things that you can do that make it easier for you to practice the routines that you want to practice, whether it's a creativity or organizing or weight loss or dieting or whatever it is.
Or just like feeling better about yourself, mental health.
Yeah, mental health. Also very important.
Yeah.
One of the examples that I use, actually, I had a lab meeting yesterday where we're working through some counseling techniques and stuff. And one of the examples that I used for the person I was counseling, they were trying to establish a routine and a goal to not pick up their phone, but to write in their journal. And I've used this example a couple times with people. If you want to not pick up your phone in the morning and you want to write in your journal to start your day by writing off your plan or whatever it is, then put your phone underneath your journal when you go to bed at night.
Yeah.
That way the first thing you pick up is your journal, and you have to make a conscious decision to put that down in order to pick up your phone to start doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Whereas if your phone's on top, you pick up your phone and
you never touch the journal again.
Yeah. And just like we talked about a couple days ago when we were talking about, or a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the cerebellar automation thing, right? Lots of what we do, lots of habits that we have are just automated things, right? And so if we want to change those automations in our brain, we need to physically change our environment to make it easier.
Yeah.
One of the things that researchers are talking about now with willpower, for example, people just say you just need the willpower to do that or to overcome this or whatever. And a lot of research says that people who appear to have the highest level of willpower actually are more focused on changing their environment and the cues that trigger those habits.
Well, I think it only makes sense, right? And how many of us are stuck just because we don't change what's around us? Like we change one thing, or we make a little manipulation, or we go whole hog, oh, I'm never going to eat this again, and get rid of everything. And it's not realistic because you're going to fall back into those habits, right? So you've got to, I don't know if we've talked about it before, where when you get rid of a habit, there's going to be like empty space, and unless you fill it with something, it's just going to come back in. And so you need to replace that habit with something else. And I think it's the same with organizing your home, right? If you leave, this is where the minimalist thing can get hard. If you leave empty drawers, someone's going to fill them. Unless you live by yourself, in which case you're probably okay. But if you live with somebody else, right? Or there's going to be like, oh, I can just set this here because there's nothing else here right now. And then it builds up and whatever. And so things happen, and being willing to kind of force yourself in that routine of, no, this isn't where I put this, right? Don't put it down, put it away.
Yeah.
And setting boundaries with yourself, because if you can set those boundaries and keep them for yourself, then you'll also be able to set boundaries with other people and in other areas of your life and be more successful.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's a common trope with shops that your shop is never big enough.
Yeah.
Because you know, any space that you have.
Because you have a hoarding problem?
Well, basically everybody who has a shop is probably a closet hoarder.
Yep.
Or out and out hoarder, one of the two.
I always wondered who hoards closets.
I don't know. Somebody who's afraid of coming out of the closet and wants to have lots of them.
Don't say that.
What?
You need to edit that out.
There's people who are afraid of coming out of the closet. Why do I need to edit that out? I'm not being offensive to anybody. Okay. I'm sorry. If you're offended, and if anybody is offended, please send your rebuttal to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com. Or if you have questions, you can also send them to the same place, questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com.
I'm not. No.
You're not? No what? I think we're done talking now.
Why do you say things like that?
I don't understand why it's offensive. Can anybody tell me why that was offensive?
Why? Was there not many other things? Okay.
Probably not.
All right.
I'm not editing.
You were the one who had a conversation with somebody today at supper time talking about how, yes, you would like to do lots of other things besides be offensive, but then when you get it, no, I'm not going to edit that or care.
But I don't understand how that was offensive. The person in question was saying it's fun to be deliberately offensive. I don't understand how what I just said was offensive.
Because it's like derogatory.
What? Coming out of the closet?
Yeah, you're not supposed to say that anymore.
No, I was unaware of that, and I'm the one that's in that profession.
I don't think you're supposed to say that anymore.
I'm not aware of that. I was making a comment about people who are afraid to express their true selves, and I'm thinking it's okay to express your true self.
All right.
I was making a dad joke about closets, and you turned it into some sort of emotional...
I'm emotionally traumatized from this whole conversation now.
And on that bombshell, thanks for listening, everybody. Please share the show. This might be the last one. We might get canceled after this one, apparently.
You just have to have other guests on for a while.
So if you found anything from this episode to be helpful and you want to reinforce it for yourself, I'd like to invite you to share it with a friend in the next 24 hours. That'll help reinforce it in your mind, and it'll help those around you, which is always a good thing. So thanks again for listening, and now I'd like to say thank you to all the amazing patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast. You guys make the show possible. If you're finding the show helpful and you want to support it, there are a few tiers, including a simple $1 a month option to just say thanks. For $5 a month, you can get access to the patrons only feed that has a pre-show and a post-show, in addition to the regular podcast all in one feed. You all know that the good stuff happens after the official mics are off, right? If you can't support financially, I totally understand. But I'd love it if you left a 5-star review or told a friend about the podcast. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear that as well. Send it to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com and I'll get it on the show. I want to say thank you to all the patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast, but especially to the founding fathers, and they are Mr. Matthew Serio from Argiano Serio, Mr. Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, Mr. Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts, Mr. Eric Peterson of Overall Maker Works, Mr. Brandon Millichamp of Tectonic Creations, and the one and only the Grant Alexander. So a special thank you to the founding fathers, and thank you to everybody who supports and shares the Workshop Therapy podcast.